Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into MB12 Weekend, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight, the Christian Council president says stop playing the blame game on crime. 3 people murdered since yesterday. Concerns about schools impacted by Hurricane Joaquin. Why suicide is becoming a public health problem. Plus, who are the cutest kids this week? I'm Paige McCartney. We've got those stories and more straight ahead on MB12 Weekend. Welcome once again to MB12. Christian Council President Reverend Dr. Ranford Patterson says now more than ever, political parties have to stop the blame game as it relates to crime. Patterson was commenting on the new murder record the country attained this week. He said the nation's leaders and citizens have to stop pointing fingers.
The government has been blaming the opposition and so forth and so on. Everybody blaming somebody for the crime that we have. I believe if all of us do our part, if the family do their part, the police, the church, the community, civil society, if all of us get involved in this process, I believe we can eliminate this crime.
He said there's no reason why policy hasn't supported stiffer penalties to keep wrongdoers off the streets by now.
There's need for change in our legislation. We've been calling for it for the last several years, where the penalties need to be more stiffer on these persons who are out on bail. Either we need to fix it so that persons who commit heinous crime, they must remain in prison. We have to find a way to make that happen. The judiciary is saying that the laws are not strong enough. The politicians are saying the police are not doing enough. I think it's time that we recognize that the problem that we have will only be solved when all of us sit around the table. We've been calling for this. The church, civil society, the government, the opposition, everybody need to sit around the table, stop pointing fingers, and make up in their minds that we're going to eliminate this problem once and for all.
But Bahamians also have to do their part, according to the Christian Council president, who charged citizens to stop turning a blind eye to crimes they witness.
We have to be careful. I've been a victim of crime. I pulled up in my yard and someone pulled a gun on me. But we cannot allow the criminal elements to determine how we will live in our society. We need to be more vigilant, but at the same time, we must take responsibility. If you know people are committing crime, report them. We're not doing that. Everybody seems to be afraid.
Patterson added that it's time for Bahamians to show just how serious they are by taking to the streets.
Everybody is passing the buck instead of dealing with the issues that we face every day. I call for a march on Bay Street, where all of us as people of this country would come together and say to the criminal element, we are not going to allow you to determine the future of our country. How many people are willing to do it? We saw John Bull had a sale. People were breaking down the doors. We can't get 50 people to come on Bay Street to march against violence, against crime in the country. We're not serious. Until we get serious, nothing is going to change.
Police are reporting 3 more murders since yesterday, 1 on Grand Bahama and 2 others in eastern New Providence. Reports are that just before midnight, a man was sitting in a vehicle at Ghana Circle, Elizabeth Estates, when 4 men approached him and shot him before running away. The victim died on scene, and police are also reporting a homicide in 8 Mile Rock, Grand Bahama. Police say a man was stabbed to death yesterday evening, and police say a man is in custody assisting with that investigation. And not too long ago, police reported a fatal shooting on Jacaranda Street in Pinewood. We'll have details on that murder in tomorrow's newscast. Well, visiting head of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Bishop A.J. Richardson, says the Bahamas can't lose its charm to the criminal element. Richardson is visiting the Bahamas from Florida for the 76th annual conference of the AME Church at Cousin McPhee Church. He said the Bahamas is like any other urban community in the United States, but can't allow criminals to take away all it has to offer.
We've always heard it's better in the Bahamas. But welcome to the real world where violence is rampant and rife. It's a frightening thing when we see guns taking over and being held by mean-spirited persons fools with guns. We come from Florida. United States, of course, has its issues, and the issues are different. We've done litanies, and we are standing with the people who say Black Lives Matter. But here we have 130 deaths this year in the Bahamas. That's just way too many people. Something has to be done.
Richardson said during his meetings with local politicians, strategies to combat crime were discussed, but he said it will take citizen action to make a real difference.
We've been having vigil after vigil, praying for families that have lost loved ones. We have funerals, but something has to take place after the vigil, action. And we're trying to encourage the people to stand up, to represent, and say that enough is enough. I mean, how many more people have to die before we take matters into our hands to say we take moral authority over these issues? We've heard the expression, something wicked this way comes. This is it.
Well, a mother turned activist in the Kemp Road community is speaking out and voicing her concerns about that notorious community. Rita Thompson and her family have called Kemp Road their home for years. And during their time, she admits the area has been overshadowed by crime.
But when we look at crime in our community, I think I don't want to point fingers, but I think there can be more things done, especially when we see the amount of our young men. It concerns me to see so many young men dying on our streets. Senseless killing.
On Wednesday night, 2 men were shot near St. Bede's Church. One of them died at the scene. But it's not just murders bringing her community down, says Thompson. The young mother recalled when known gang members approached her own 10-year-old son asking him to sell drugs.
He said, "Mommy, this guy came to him and asked him if he ready to sell dope. You ready to be on this road?" So I say, "What?" I say, "Who this boy is, who this guy is." He said, "Mommy, don't go at him because I scared what he might do to you." I said, "Who is he?" I didn't see him right away, so it gave me time to calm down, and I was glad. And I say, "But God," because I didn't see him until about 4 or 5 days later. And I look at him, I say, "Okay." I said, "Listen here." I call him and I said, "Come here." I called my son out the house and I said, "You know him?" He said, "Yes, I know him." I said, "What did you tell him?" This time I was only joking. I said, "Look at him again. You don't ever let the devil fool you to play."
Thompson says she's not afraid to stand up to those who are a threat to her community.
If I do my small part in Camp Road, it would then go on to other communities. I always say that I try to be the change that I want to see. And that's why I made myself available for different groups. I try to volunteer. I try to assist where I can with whatever small donation that may be.
And the Bahamas is showing its support to France after that tragic terrorist attack on Friday. A statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the government of the Bahamas stands with the international community in expressing its deep regrets over the loss of life from the horrific shootings in Paris. It continues that the Bahamas condemns these barbaric acts in the strongest terms and extends condolences to the families of all the victims. Mitchell says instructions were given to the Honorary Consul in Kingston to convey those sentiments to the French ambassador to the Bahamas, who lives there, and a diplomatic note will follow. He said the Bahamas stands ready to work with CARICOM allies and the international community to combat